Check out CadburyFC.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. Coming up, we're talking to two of Donegal and Ireland's finest exports, goalkeeping legends Shay and Packie Bonner. But first, here is your host, off-the-ball legend, Joe Molloy.
Hello there, you're very welcome along. This is our very first remote roadshow in partnership with Cadbury FC. You can check out CadburyFC.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. We're going to be doing a few of these shows with Cadbury's over the next couple of weeks. And this evening, we've got a great lineup. They say goalkeepers are a bit mad. We've got two of them, two Donegal men as well, two Irish stalwarts, over 200 Irish caps between them. We are talking 3 World Cup appearances, 3 European Championships, longevity at club level in Scotland and the Premier League. Coaching careers have followed as well. I am very happy to welcome Packie Bonner and Shay Given. Packie, you're there. Hello.
Yeah, lovely to be on, and good to talk to Shay again and see that young face from Donegal. But you know, Joe, he's working really hard now. He's in a club job, and he's in a real life job. You know, once we get past that playing stage, we've got to go into the real life.
You're into the real world now, Shay. You have to put in the hours and do all the unglamorous work. How you doing? You're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. As Packie says, it's I get up at 6:30 most mornings. I get home 6:30 if I'm lucky. So it's long days at the crease. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm learning every day. Philip Cuckey, obviously the Derby manager now, so he's really open and he's honest and he shares everything with me. So fantastic from a learning point of view as well. So trying to be as knowledgeable as young Mr. Bonner there.
Yeah, Joe, I went down a couple of months ago, well, probably about a year ago now, and stayed with Shay while we were doing the coach education stuff, and I couldn't believe how stressed he was between a family and a job. He was just in the job after a while, and he was so stressed. I hope you're not the same, Shay, at the moment.
No. I always say, Packie, pressure's for tires, so pressure doesn't get to me. So the bigger the game, the bigger the job, the more I enjoy it. But no, I mean, there is pressure with the job, but as you know, Packie, it's how you handle the pressure, I suppose. We've had similar careers, you know, playing a long number of years comes a lot of pressure, I suppose, and coaching's just a sort of an add-on to that. Albeit you can only do so much planning and organising during the week, and then when the whistle starts on a Saturday or Sunday, whenever the game is, it's over to the guys you've been working with, you know. So you have to put your faith in them, and hopefully they've listened during the week, and obviously the results all that matters at the end of the day. You
two are hardly aging. Shay, you still look about 28.
Must be this just for men, Joe. I go for the black. Packie says off air, they says, "You lucky you put on a bit of weight, Shay." I'm like, "Actually, I'm up to 3 chins instead of 2 chins." But nah.
You know what I'm watching? I'm watching Shay at the moment, and that's, I think there's a wee bit of stuff going into that hair. That sort of he's, what age are you now? 44, Shay? There's a wee bit of I just let myself naturally go grey, but Shay's touching himself up a wee bit.
No,
I think there.
Definitely not yet. Anyway, I haven't touched the bottle yet. But the last time Packie went to the barber, he says, "Can you cut all the black ones out? Just leave the grey in." He said so.
So you two then, I mean, it is extraordinary. The boys from Burton Port and Lifford done good, to say the least. I mean, we basically, Donegal owned the #1 jersey for Ireland for decade upon decade with you two. When did you first meet Shay? I mean, I'm sure as a 12-year-old watching Euro 88, it wouldn't have escaped your attention. There was a Donegal man between the sticks. When did you first meet? Can you remember?
Probably just getting Packie's autograph. I used to go up to the games with my dad, skipped school a little bit, half a day away from school, and we drove up to Dublin to watch the Ireland games. That was the sort of my childhood memories, and my dad used to bring him to the hotel and try and get the lads' autographs. So Packie was obviously, I think Packie might have known my dad a little bit actually before I came along the scene and stuff, and Packie was very kind to, you know, not just give me autograph but actually speak to me and spend some time with me, and as you can imagine, a young lad from Donegal looking up to Packie Bonner and actually meeting him in the person, you know, it was really special, as well as all the other players, you know, like Paul McGrath and the likes, you know, they're our heroes growing up, and to actually meet them in person was very special, and you know, to go and watch the games was brilliant. Used to watch all Ireland games, and then of course you mentioned the European Championships, the World Cups that Packie starred in and stuff. It was extra special, you know. In the garden after the games, I'd be diving around the garden, pretending I'm Packie Bonner doing the commentary, and you know, just great memories as a kid growing up in Donegal. And you know, for the lads that had a great result, the Irish team, you would jump in the car and go into Lifford, the local town, and the flags all flying, and you know, I was just lucky to sort of follow in a sense of Packie's footsteps, to go across to Glasgow Celtic as well, and play for Ireland one day. That was the dream, and I was very lucky that I managed to pull on the jersey, same as Packie.
Joe, I played against his dad. That's how the age gap that we have. Seamus, he played with Glasgow Celtic, which, funnily enough, Lifford's the other end of the county. But he was down, and I think he might have been working. Was he working down around Glasgow? But he knew the boys down there, so he was working and playing for Glasgow Celtic, and I played against him. My first memory of Shay, and to be honest, I'm glad I signed the autograph, Shay, because you might have a different story. But my first memory of Shay was actually a summer camp we had down in Letterkenny. And it was during the summer, and I was obviously doing something for some sponsorship, and I had to put on this coaching camp for about a week, and Shay was along. He was about 14 years old, I think, around about that age at that particular time, and I could see a bit of something in him at that point in time. He was technically good. He obviously learned from his father a bit, and then the next time, really, I suppose, that we got in contact with us when he came over on trial over to Celtic, and Liam Brady was a manager, and Liam brought him over. Young lad was delighted to see any young guy coming from Ireland, but particularly coming from Donegal, to come over to Celtic. And I was still playing. We didn't have a goalkeeper coach at that particular time. I probably was doing a bit of both, coaching and playing, but my focus was really on playing. So I didn't really talk to Liam too much about this young boy and give him any feedback on him in relation to him coming over and trial. So I don't know who was responsible for bringing you over, Shay, but certainly it was a brilliant thing for me in Glasgow anyway. And then they signed Shay, and then we were there together for 2 years, although he was in the youth team and I was in the first team.
Yeah, I actually remember I went to a few clubs in trial, but I went to Celtic. But actually, I don't know if you remember, Packie, but it was in Dublin. Stayed in the Burlington Hotel. You had a training camp in Dublin. So I was actually staying in the hotel with the first team at Glasgow Celtic. So I was a Celtic fan growing up as well. So it was a bit surreal, like I was, in the same quarter as the whole first team at Celtic, because normally you go on trials as a 15-year-old, you would be training with the kids and stuff, but straight away I was doing, shooting sessions with Charlie Nicholas and John Collins and people like that, and obviously training with Packie Bonner as well. It was just a bit, sort of dream come true kind of stuff that Liam took me to train with the first team, and it was absolutely brilliant for me. And then of course I went across to Glasgow and the biggest thing for me probably, Joe, was when I went over was the homesickness. The first year was tough. Really missed home, missed my friends, my family and stuff, and obviously having Packie there every day and stuff was a help to work with. But at the same time, when you left the training ground or whatever, you went back to the digs and stuff, and long evenings in the digs, and you're thinking all your mates back at Donegal and your friends and your family and stuff. And it was a long journey, but obviously worth it to stick at it. But I know a lot of players do miss home that much, they head back, but
Shay,
kept the head down, and Packie was a great help. Yeah,
Shay, you stayed in digs, didn't you? You were a little bit different for me when I went over to Glasgow first. I stayed with an aunt and uncle, and I had older cousins, so that kind of made it a wee bit better for me, Joe. You know what I mean? From that perspective, even though I didn't have mates to maybe hang around with and leave them. But you were in digs, Shay. You were with Kate, wasn't it? Kate was the lady that was in charge of you.
Yeah, it was a couple of families actually. I started off, and I don't know, people listening, maybe a place called Denniston. I don't know, Packie, you remember that? It's not too far from Parkhead. And the first night I stayed there, it was rough. Like, so it was the first night I was there. I went to close the curtains actually for the bedroom, and some guy was walking past, and he looked up and he had fish and chips. Somebody just winged him over the garden, and I can't show you the sign he gave me, but he gave me a really rude sign. And I was
Welcome
the first
to
night in Glasgow, and I literally closed the curtains, jumped under the covers, and thinking I hope he doesn't come into the house or something. It's just the mad stuff goes through your head, But anyway, I went to see Liam Brady. I said, there's no way I can stay there. There was 8 lads in the house. I was like, I need to get out of here, So I ended up going out to Bishop Briggs and I stayed with a guy called Nigel Mellor. He used to play for Derry City. Some of the people might remember. And Nigel had a car and stuff. So it made it a bit easier when I moved in with Nigel and the family there. So, and then Kate later, I went to second year with Kate. So it helped me settle in. But the first night, I'll never forget the first night in Denniston. That was a rough one.
You're not in Donegal anymore. And so if
Definitely
I was
not.
to ask you both to get your sense of Donegal, Packie, it's beautiful and it's picturesque and probably feels a bit forgotten by the rest of the country in some way as well, and there's no rail connection, and you'll vote no on any referendum going, and there's a peculiar kind of sense of humour up there. Give me your sense of Donegal.
Yeah, there's a chip on the shoulder, Donegal people, I suppose, because we do think we're left behind slightly. But Donegal is a fantastic place. I was brought up beside the sea, right on the coast. Shay was a little bit different. He was inland on the border. Probably had a big influence with Saipan and Lifford, while we were kind of detached from most of that. And I was brought up there, and it was kind of remote, but it was brilliant in the same time. When I look back at it now as a young man, there was 10 of us in that house. Grandmother lived with us, and my mum and dad, and 5 sisters, and Dennis, my twin brother. It was a unique kind of upbringing, to be perfectly honest. I was back now for 3 weeks in the summer, and I actually stayed out in a little house out on an island, but it's only a couple of miles from where I live over there. And it was just a sense of peace and quiet, and you could go for a walk and nobody was near you for about 3 or 4 miles. And I used to use that a lot during my time when I played at the highest level, because that's where I went. I went back there and sort of almost just get a release. And I just particularly loved that sense of getting away from everybody. And that kind of is still what Donegal is like to a point for me. But I know that it's moved on completely. I do a lot of work with the Donegal diaspora group now, and a lot of stuff going on there that it actually opened up my eyes how much is actually happening in Donegal from a business perspective, from across the thing. So Donegal, while it's remote, it's also vibrant, and it's changed a lot since I. And listen, we've got the best airport, one of the best airports in the world. When top of the list, we've got the golf courses, we've got everything. There, and it's a place to go, and it's a place for my kids love going back to it, and I certainly love, and I hope someday maybe I might have to even get back there full time. Who knows?
Right, Shay, do you get back often?
Not enough, Joe. I was due to go actually this summer. I was just telling Packie off air before I was in Spain for a bit, and then the news broke in the UK that they had to come back and stuff. So I missed the quarantine. So I had to quarantine for a couple of weeks and to come back. I was going to go back and see my dad and stuff and what have you. So I couldn't go back then with the current sort of climate in the world. So I just had to keep the head down. We're back at training now as well. So I maybe get back next international break. I know there's one now in a couple of weeks where we've got a cup game, but maybe October I'd like to go back and see. I love Donegal. Packie sort of explained it really well there. My dream one day is to have a little cottage maybe on the beach and just chill there. There's some beautiful beaches in Donegal, Port Salin and stuff, the golf courses Packie mentions and stuff. It's just a great place. I think it's more relaxed, it's more, I suppose, laid back. I live in Manchester here in England. It's pretty hectic at times, and obviously work sort of overloads you with work and what have you, and it's just nice to go there, as Packie says, and I don't know, put the feet up, or see your friends, see your family, see your mates. And the good thing I always find when you go back, my friends treat me like, I've never been away, I've never played football, I've never been like playing from a country, just like they just hammer you the same way as if you're one of the lads down, and that's what I love. I've never changed, they never changed, and it's just great to go home. I do miss it, and Packie, maybe the dream is as well, we'll tell the missus is like, but the dream is to go back one day maybe ourselves and live there permanently. But there's other things with kids at school here and stuff, and it's not just as simple as me packing up and leaving, as you can imagine, Joe.
No, I'm sure it's not.
I think, Joe, just what Shay's saying there, but when you go home, everybody just treats you as if you were there all your life, There's no kind of stardom, or there's nobody saying, oh, you played in World Cups and so on. You're actually, they bring you back to earth a little bit, that's for sure. Yeah. The Donegal people, I found it even when I went to Glasgow, and even if I had a Scottish word and so on, after I went back in the holidays, it was almost kind of knocked out of you. Don't you be getting carried away now. Don't be, all that kind of stuff. So it's just a grounding place to go, and people just treat you normal.
Yeah, no, it must be a lovely almost refuge to have in your back pocket that you can go home to at times. Shay, Packie talked there about, his idyllic upbringing in some ways, and he was on the show maybe a month ago, and his father was a great storyteller and lots of family around. I had no idea until you brought out your book a couple of years ago how, kind of what a hero your father was really in your childhood after the very sad death of your mother. I mean, an amazing thing for him to bring up. I don't know, was it 6 children under 11, 1980s Ireland, Donegal? Phenomenal, really. So I suspect it was kind of a different childhood to Packie's for you. Yeah.
I mean, I lost my mum when I was 4, so it was very tough. Even when I talk about it as an adult, I get emotional. Anyone to lose a parent, but to lose one so young, it was tough. The only memories I have of my mum was in hospital visiting her when she was ill. So my dad was left with 6 of us, and you can imagine I think, to be fair, these aunties, his sisters and stuff, thought they would take a couple each and all this and split the family up, and because it was too much for him to take on board. But you got to give him credit. He said there's absolutely no chance that's happening. We stuck together. He was a horticulturist. He worked for the government, and we had a lot of, what we call them, babysitters, should we say, and we went through quite a few of them. I remember my brother Kieran getting a wooden spoon broken over his backside once, so we had to hand his clothes out the bathroom one day to get him dressed and stuff, you know. So I think that's why we went through quite a few, because we were a handful when we were younger. But yeah, my dad deserves, you say, Joe, a lot of credit. You know, he kept us together, worked hard for us all, and we worked hard. We ended up having a market gardening business, and we used to have to grow all the vegetables and then sell them around Lifford at the weekend and stuff. And all day Saturday we had no sort of weekends off. You'd go to bed, like knock on the door, fruit and veg, to about 1,000 houses in the weekend, and you go to bed, close eyes at night, and you could hear the fruit and veg going off in your head. It was quite repetitive, but yeah, we had a tough enough upbringing. But you know, I always think it stood me in good stead in my football career. You know, we were lucky, as Packie says, to play football for a living. I know what a hard day's work is. You know, I always read articles, footballers don't know how lucky they are, you know, and just to play football. But I know what a hard day's work is, and that's from the upbringing and where I was from, and my dad, you know, sort of instilled that in us. And I know I'm lucky to the position I'm in. I'm lucky to play football, lucky now to be a coach. But I don't remember the hard times when I was a kid as well. Great memories as well, don't get me wrong, but we did have to work hard for a living as well.
It must be a lovely thing for you then to be representing Ireland all those times, or to be having big years in the Premier League, and your dad gets to go along for the ride. You know, if there's those tough years, getting all you guys raised and fed and watered, then to have, you know, that, God, what an unexpected twist at the end.
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the start of the show, me and my dad used to go and watch the games ourselves, you know, so I can only imagine how a father would feel if his son's playing for Ireland, for the country that, you know, he supported and used to go and watch them. That gives that extra connection, you know. It just must be, if my son played for Ireland one day, I just don't know what I would do, you know. It would just be the most amazing thing ever, you know. So my dad would never really say he's proud of me, but I'm sure, you know, deep down he's burning me pride, and you know,
Shay, your dad, your dad was really proud of you. Anytime I spoke to him, he can almost, he was your biggest supporter. And can I say to you, you're around about 6'1", yeah? Yeah. Your dad always said to me that he was 6'5", because he was always this kid building Shay up to be, he is the number one. And any challenge on your height, because obviously that was a big thing, you know, height wise. Shay's 6'5", you know, so he was always your big supporter. Yeah. I mean, that's what I suppose parents do. They build you up, and they you never have a bad game, you never make a mistake. You know, it was the defender's fault or whatever, you know. But no, you know, as I say, he must be extremely proud, you know, to play for Ireland, and then. So I can only imagine what the connection would be, because as I said, we mentioned supporting Packie growing up, and I didn't know Packie. Obviously, I just knew he was from Donegal. We were proud of him because he was from the same county, and he was the #1 goalkeeper in Ireland. So we were all right behind him. So I imagine as a parent and having someone on the football pitch playing for your country, it must be just. Well, the funny thing, Shay, from your perspective, your dad. I lost my dad when he died when he was 61. So I had just got in and started to play in the Celtic team. So my dad wasn't actually around during all them times, and I can hear exactly what you're saying, that, you know, I wish he was to just experience all the great times, travel around the world, see you play. And I don't know how nervous he would be, and I don't know how your dad was. Could he handle the pressure? Maybe as a ex-goalkeeper he was all right, but I can imagine sitting up in the stand, you know, when I have my own son Andrew, and he played a little bit, even though he didn't play at a high level, you were always wanting him to do well, and the pressure would be on. So I don't know how my dad would have handled all of that, but he wasn't around to see the good moments, and I regret that. While your dad was. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's tough, I suppose, as you say. You mentioned my mum before. Like, he always, when he used to play, I always used to think what she would think, or what she would say to me after a game. You know, because my dad was quite harsh as well. He would say, "What the hell are we doing with that goal?" Or "What? Why did you pass it to him?" Or did you not be your worst critic, but at the same time, your biggest supporter. You know. Did he not give me? Was it me? What's that goalkeeper coach doing with you? Is that what it was? I probably blame somebody else. Yeah, them gloves, them manufacturing gloves are not good enough, or whatever it was. But but he's been to the World Cup. He went to Japan and Korea to support us, and things like that. You know, he would travel all around the world to support the country, even more so when I played. So yeah, it's special for him as well. So Shay, there's a great picture of a very young Shay given in, it was about December '96, and Packie in Ireland training. So you obviously briefly overlapped, and then Packie, obviously you went in as goalkeeping coach with Ireland. Yeah. So Shay, tell us Shay about Packie, the goalkeeping coach.
Well, actually, when Packie made his 80th cap, I came off the pitch and Packie came on. Do you remember that in America, Packie? Do you remember that?
So my last game, last game for Ireland.
So it was a bit surreal, like, you know, that Packie was playing his last game and I was probably making my first or second cap or something, you know, but it was as if he was like handing over the mantle. He said, like, I've looked after this job for the last 10 or 15 years. It's over to you now to represent Donegal and Ireland, of course, and looking back now is sort of special because, you know, I was only starting out in my career, international career, whatever. It could have been 2 or 3 caps and see you later, you know. And Packie has such longevity as well, and 80 caps, and you know, it was just a special moment, I think, between both of us that we sort of, he goes, there you go now, basically, you know, it's over to you a bit. But Packie, the coach, then was, you know, fantastic because, you know, you're learning from someone who's been there, got the T-shirt. You know, I always think that experience, you know, you have to use that, you have to rub it off on the goalkeepers you're working with because, you know, you're teaching them. You know, I don't know, as you mentioned, Packie, big games and stuff, you know, you've been there, you've got the T-shirt, you know what to expect, and you can sort of pass on that knowledge as well as putting on sessions. You can pass on the knowledge and experience that you've had of your career, be it good or bad, because, you know, there's lots of things that can all go the other way as well. You know, you hear of players going, you know, spiraling out of control, doing other things off the pitch and what have you, you know, so you have to. I always remember Packie saying once to me, I think maybe even at that time when he sort of passed over the baton or whatever, it's one thing getting to the top, he says, it's another thing staying at the top, you know. And that was good advice because it's true, you know, we can all have you can mention lots of players one cap wonders or whatever, and they think okay, I'm here now, I've made it, but it's the hard work that people don't see, I suppose, every single day, dedication and training hard and dedicating yourself to football.
Can I come in here? And I must say the hardest bit for me with Shay was trying to keep him sensible when he wasn't playing the game, when he was with the crowd, when he was with the boys, trying to keep him from being out in the town and so on. That was the hardest bit, I've got to say, with Shay, because he likes a good night out also. And but no, listen, this guy worked unbelievably hard on the pitch. I've always said it, and I've said it, Shay, and I don't know what you say to young goalkeeper that's coming through now. The one thing that Shay did was he looked in your eye when you spoke to him. You know, I don't know whether your dad told you to do that or whatever, but he looked in your eye when you were speaking. Now, going through coach education, when I go around the world and I listen to different cultures, I've learned a lesson actually, because there's some countries people don't look in your eye; they actually look away from you, and that's giving you respect. Well, in our culture, when a young lad when you're talking to him and he's looking at you and you think that he's taking in information, then you almost feel that this guy is up for it. Now, he didn't have to agree, and I don't think he agreed with everything I said, but I just felt that connection was there. The hardest part for me as a goalkeeper coach at that time, and it was a completely different way of working then as it is now, Joe. You've got to understand that, because I worked Shay probably too hard at times, you know, but he was up for it. I had to drag him off the pitch at times because he wanted to stay on and work harder and harder. But the hardest part for me was actually dealing with the likes of Alan Kelly and Dean Kiley and Shay Given, trying to keep almost a perspective on it and Shay wanted to play every single game when he came in, and absolutely, and that's the way you should be as an international player. You want to play, but how do you keep Dean Kiley and Alan Kelly then almost happy that they're not playing the games, and then thinking we have this special bond because we come from Donegal, you know what I mean? And maybe I'm being a wee bit more too loyal to Shay, and I tried to, and I hope I did try to keep that very, very even, because you can always get into a wrong sense of probably relationships there, even though we knew each other. So I tried to keep that as sensible as I could and try and keep it level, which isn't an easy task for any coach. And Shay, you know that yourself. Numero uno has to play and he has to win games, but you've got to keep the other guys happy.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I was probably lucky in a sense that I played most of the time I was there, but yeah, any games I didn't play, I didn't enjoy it, to be honest, you know. But that's probably me just being selfish now. Looking back as a coach, you think, well, Packie had a difficult job to keep us all sort of happy, keep us all motivated. It's getting that balance, you know. I suppose keeping the group happy, and we all talk about the goalkeepers union. I think that's, I always say to my goalkeepers, I don't pick the team, the manager picks the team. My job is to get you all up to a level that he's got a tough decision to make on a Saturday. So that's my way around it. You know, yeah, you do have influence with the manager, of course you do a little bit, but he, in a sense, he picks a team at the Saturday at 3 o'clock, whatever it is. So he's the one in charge of that, and that's what I say to my keepers at the minute. You know, just keep them focused and keep them prepared, because you know things can change very quickly as well.
Fellas, later on in the chat, we'll talk about the position of goalkeeper and how it's changed and what aspects you're hot on or not hot on. But just for a moment, Packie, on Shay's goalkeeping then, if you're his coach, can you remember around, 2000s territory onwards, Shay's really getting peak of his powers territory. Were there specific things you were pointing out to him, be it an approach to a certain scenario or a certain shot or positioning? Was it technical advice you were offering him, or was it more of a mentorship and how you handle pressures? Can you remember what you were seeing in Shay, the goalkeeper, at that stage?
Yeah, probably a combination. When Shay was young first, I was lucky that I had him at Celtic, and we were training together. There's a great picture, actually, of our very first coach over in Ireland, at Celtic, was Joe Corrigan. And Liam Brady brought him up on almost a part-time basis. Now, Joe was the older traditional type coach, and he used to get balls around the back penalty spot. I don't remember that, Shane. He used to smash the balls at you. Remember that? And if you couldn't save them, you were hopeless, And I was getting a little bit older. Like I was now in me kind of almost 34, 33, 34 years old, and that these young boys could do it, I couldn't do it, But Joe was the very first, and it's a great photograph. I have it actually in my book of Shay as a young boy, Stuart Kerr. Gordon Marshall was kind of the backup to me at that particular time. Joe Corrigan was the coach, ex-English international, Man City. And then the one that everybody said, who's that there? It was Brad Friedel. Brad Friedel, who came over on trial. Liam brought him in trial, but he couldn't get a work permit. And what I can remember about Brad Friedel was that he had this unbelievable throw coming from almost America, USA, with that sort of kind of almost American football thing. He was a big, strong boy, but he couldn't get his work permit and they couldn't sign him. So he moved on, and listen, you know where he's went to. But it's a great photograph of all of that happening. So I then stepped into that sort of coaching role and mentor, as you talked about. But the thing, what I noticed about Shay, and it was more when I got him at international level, and I hope Shay doesn't mind me saying this, Shay had a couple of wee things that I felt that he needed to improve on. And it was then that looking at, it was more technical and physical work than tactical work we were doing. And it was a psychologically work, just talking to him off the pitch and different things, and maybe talking to him about the big games. But the technical side, Shay had these little two things. One, he double hopped to the side. He kind of jumped off 2 feet. If you think about it, Shay, remember? Yeah, and it was always getting him to take that one step and going and diving forward. So what happened was, when he double hopped to the side, he almost kind of dived flat along the goal, so we didn't attack the ball at right angles. So that was a little thing that we picked up on very much. And the other little thing that Shay had was, he had this little, and there's only habits, that he kind of almost hopped and hopped backwards by 6 inches, opening up the goal. And I think there was a game, I don't know if you remember, Shay, but you were playing against, was it Partizan in a European game? And there was a goal that was almost came in off the right-hand side and was shot across you. And I remember sitting in the house watching it, and Shay took that little hop backwards, and he made a great dive, and he was almost getting to the ball, but he was a couple of inches, and it just beat him on his right-hand side. And then I went back to international football then, and the next time, and we talked about that little incident. Yeah. If you hopped forward or took that little step forward, you would have probably got contact with the ball. And I remember talking about it, and we were set up little exercises. And the great thing about Shay was, you didn't even have to go through the process. Shay took on the process himself, and he worked through that process until it almost knocked the bad habit out, and replaced it with the good habit. And that's credit to Shay that he took that on into his club work, because at international level, you're only working for, you've only maybe 3-4 sessions to work on, and it's not about the technical side. It's more about preparing for the game, and you can't work on these things. So credit to Shay that he actually sorted those little things out. But you have to see it first and foremost as a coach, and then you've got to try to get the message across, and the participant has to take in the information and go with it, and that's how it works.
Yeah, it's fascinating to get that insight. And Shay, were you appreciative of all that? I mean, it sounds like you took it on board straight away, wanted to improve, or probably happy someone had spotted something.
Well, going to the technical thing, I remember this. Definitely remember the skip back. So if I turn off the post, my set position would be, you should post your both feet supposed to come down, but I would take a jump back and then set. And subconsciously, I didn't even know I was doing it, Joe. It was like, Packie was like, stop there, don't go back. My set thing was to jump back. So what happens if a shot's on the way and you're not set, you're going back? Some stuff would go past you, you're sort of stretching by the time you get set and come back. So Packie, to be fair, tried to get me set, either set forward or set, just get up on your toes to take off. And we've got a young keeper at Derby, does the exact same thing at the minute. He spins off the post and he sets back. And it's just like, Packie telling that story again, it just reminded me exactly. I explained to the young goalkeeper, I says, this is something you don't even know you're doing. And subconsciously, he's setting back the way. And he's like, I videoed him and I showed him. He goes, yeah, I didn't even know I was doing that. So he's taking it on board and he's going to try and get that out of his game as well. It's still not out of his game, he's getting there. But like, these are the little things, as Packie will tell you, inches and stuff make such a big difference. The forward dive or whatever, step and dive, all these different things. And if you're set 2 or 3 inches back, that can be a goal. The difference between a goal and not a goal,
Yeah, the other thing, Joe, can I say to you, and I don't know, obviously things have moved on dramatically and we can talk about it later, but just from a physical point of view, what Shay did also was he really worked on his spring. You remember you used to do with the Viper belt and different things, trying to really get explosivity into his game, because maybe he was 6'1", but he actually jumped 6'5", 6. He had real power for a young boy, and I think that's what actually really made him. Some of the saves that he pulled off as he went on and stuff that I've seen was incredible, because he had that. And maybe that's the analysis, maybe that's the sort of sports science that came into it during Shay's almost career that I probably didn't have. We didn't have goalkeeper coaches. I was probably a very poor technical goalkeeper because there was nobody there really to pick up on those little things. But also from a sports science point of view, we had nothing. We didn't even have a gym at Parkhead when I went there first. We almost had to do our sit-ups out in the foyer, and things had just moved on completely, And I feel kind of almost jealous of the goalkeepers and even the goalkeeper coaches now, that they have all this at hand, which we didn't have.
Shay, you were in Premier League team of the season 02 and 06. So that is your pros across the league saying this guy's the best goalkeeper in the league, which makes you unquestionably world class and as good as any goalkeeper in the world around that period. What did you feel were your strengths? Like when you were really on your game in that period, it felt like you were just this phenomenal shot stopper and you could throw yourself at anything. You might give us a sense of your approach to goalkeeping when you were really in great form, and it seemed like you were seeing things early and getting hands to things and just in a great place.
Yeah, I think people talk about being in the zone in any sport. I think what I used to find myself doing is, Packie mentioned me working hard every day in training, and that was where the hard work, people don't see that. And then when the lights come on, camera action at the weekend, that's the time I felt that I could express myself, enjoy myself, because I've done all the work all through the week, and any good coach will do cross and kick and whatever reflexes, shot stopping. So in my head, mentally, I've prepared, the best I can. I've done everything that I'm going to come across in the game, and then now is to show the world what I can do. And I think to get in that sort of mental place where you just, I don't know, it's enjoying what you're doing, like saying to yourself, I'm going to make an unbelievable save today. I can't wait to play this. I can't wait to play against the best players in the world in the best league. And I'll show to them that this guy from Donegal is going to be hard to beat today, and that's, I think every time you cross the white line, you have to prove that you are at a level that you're up there, and I just enjoyed the moment.
Joe, could I just ask Shay, and it's a question I've probably never asked him, and it's very relevant now because of the lack of crowd in stadiums, and it's going to be there for all of the goalkeepers and the outfield players going forward. How much did you feed off the crowd? Because from my perspective, when I played, I loved playing in the big games, and I loved playing with the crowd right up behind me. I remember even doing warm-ups, and when I came over to Ireland on tours and so on, and going to the RDS or going into St. Pat's, into Richmond Park, the crowd coming in and just always putting a bit of a show on for them and the warm-ups even, So yeah. I fed on the crowd. How did that motivate you, or did it kind of?
No, it's the same, Packie. I probably, when I made my debut, I was a bit nervous. And I remember in Dublin, my dad said before the game, I said, don't look up, don't look up. When you do the national anthem, you line up, and first thing I did was look up. He's like, don't look up. Like as if like they're just going to put you off your game. But I think with anything, the more you do it in front of the crowd, and then the bigger the crowd, the bigger the game, the more important it's like, you feel like you're, I don't know, growing. You're just like bring it on. Like, the bigger the game, the bigger the occasion, whatever, bring it on. I remember going to the Iran, the playoff, 100,000 people in the stadium, and they were throwing rocks and grenades. That seemed that these things were blowing up before the pitch, and it was just, all right then, let's go, you know, this goal, and just great memories. You know, you can never sort of take that back or whatever. You just look, even it takes a show like this to even think about it and think, wow, you know, the hairs in the back of my neck sort of stand up again to sort of reminisce. But yeah, it was, Joe, to be in that sort of mode, like, you know, you feel that you're not going to concede. You're not going to, no one's going to beat you today. It's a special feeling.
I would think so. I'd say it's the best part of the job in many ways. Fellas, there's a thing called Godwin's Law, which is the longer an online discussion goes on, the higher the probability that somebody will call somebody else a Nazi or Hitler. And so it follows in an Irish football conversation, the longer it goes on, the more likely that Saipan or Roy Keane will come up. And Packie, there's the famous photo, and the goalkeepers, not that the goalkeepers kerfuffle was the main issue, I know, but there's the famous photo where Roy's throwing a bottle of water, camera's in the right place, you're in the wrong place, it looks like all hell's breaking loose. So you're the goalkeeping coach that was giving the lads a day off.
Well, actually, you know, I got to blame for that initially, but what happened was, and just sorry to kind of put the photograph into context, there was one photographer there, and the rest of it, there was nobody else from the media there apart from one photographer, and they took the photograph, and in fact the bottle is going in the opposite direction away from me, but it looks like he's throwing it at me, so that's the context of the photograph. But really what happened was, if you can remember, Saipan shade was incredible, warm down there, and it was kind of almost like an R&R, because we were there to almost get ourselves relaxed before going out there. But I've got to blame Shay actually for Roy.
News to me.
I've got to blame,
news to me.
I've got to blame everything on Shay, because when we were heading out to Saipan, we were in Amsterdam airport, and you remember that skit that was it Today FM that he used to do, Roy Radio or whatever?
Yeah.
Whatever it was anyway. And Shay had it on his laptop, and I remember him playing it, and all the boys gathering around and having a real fun. And you could hear kind of almost Roy's voice, and Roy was sitting up about 20 yards away reading the book, and you could see the steam coming out his ears. So there was him that started Roy in a bad place, I've got to say. But Saipan, going back to Saipan, I decided I wanted to keep Shay and Dean Kelly and Alan. I wanted to keep them sharp. You know, even though it was R&R and we weren't really into our training process yet, I wanted to keep them. So I asked them, would they go down a little bit earlier? Because Mick and Taff was down setting up, and Ian Evans was going to do this sort of shooting exercise, if you remember, Shay, and he wanted to get into it fairly quickly. So I took them down a bit earlier, got into a bit of training and worked them quite hard as I normally did. And then the bus came and the players came off, and Ian Evans went into a shooting exercise. And at the end of it, Alan Kelly came to me and said, listen, we're absolutely done in here. Can we step out of the five-a-side game that Mick always had? And that was the moment then that Roy kind of lost it a little bit, because he wanted the goalkeepers to play in the five-a-side. And he was on to me. And I said, Roy, they're done. And they went down to the tent, remember, to get a little bit of hydration on. And then the five-a-side was over. And that's when Roy walked down to me, and he started giving out again about the goalkeepers not playing in the five-a-side. And I was getting up, getting the balls. I say, Roy, forget it. And I didn't see, by the way, the next part of it. And the next goalkeeper I blame was Alan Kelly, because Alan Kelly apparently had a bit of a go at him in the tent. Shay, you might have been around when he did have a go, and said that he would take him out there. And, you know, you don't mess with goalkeepers, Joe. You know, we're all in this together. If any outfield players mess with us, we say, hey, you're going to get done in here if you keep it up. So I think Alan had a few words with him, and that was as far as I knew that happened. And it was only when they went back up to the media, and Mick was having his press conference, that the young lad, now he's actually no longer with us, young lad, he passed away last year, unfortunately, and he was working for Sky. And he asked our press officer, another gentleman who's no longer with us, was there a bit of a set to with Packie and Roy down there? And our press officer, instead of him saying, no, everything's fine, he said, oh, Jesus, yeah. Oh, Jesus, we're at it, full health down there. So that was what the Sky reported wanted. And next thing then, it was on Sky that me and him had fallen out. And my God, the whole thing took off from there. And it was only next morning, because there was this delay of 8 hours, that And I picked up on the following morning, Joe, to say that this big sort of news story had broke over in Ireland. And I think Eamon Dunphy said I should be the one that's coming home, not Roy. And that's kind of where it all started. And can I just say to you that the other part of it was, I came down for breakfast that following morning, and everybody had left bar 2 people. And they were sitting down having breakfast, and it was Alan Kelly and Roy, and they were sitting at the same table having a breakfast. And I sat down beside them, and I said to Roy, I says, my God, did you see what's going on back in Ireland? Me and you supposed to... And he said, oh, I don't mind the press, don't mind the media. You know what they're like. And the 3 of us had breakfast together. So that's how bad it was. Yeah. But these things happen. And then, of course, the whole thing kicked on further then with Mick McCarthy and him and so on, you know. So that's the real story behind it, Joe.
Okay, well, that was much ado about nothing. I suspect those arguments happen every week on a training ground. I mean, the real scandal there, I didn't realise that Shay Given from Amsterdam Airport was baiting Roy Keane from across the room by playing. I mean, that's the real revelation here. That's the root cause of this whole thing.
It's funny, Joe, because you mentioned Roy Keane, and it's he lives in Manchester as well. So I was like, ask me a question, Roy Keane, the whole thing shut down. I was like, I thought he was at the door. I thought he was at the door or something. Started looking out the curtains. But no, I remember that thing that I think it was Gift Grub or something, you know, like when
That's
people
right.
used to do like
still going strong, by the way. It's still going very strong.
Oh, still going, is it?
Yeah.
So I think it was Roy Keane. He didn't get paid or something, and he's on the phone to Manchester at the Alex Ferguson on the thing, and it was funny. Obviously the Cork accent and the Scottish accent, and they were having a go at each other, and had the guys in stitches at the airport, like, and as Packie says, Roy was like sort of deaf, staring over. Why are they even laughing for? But to be fair to Roy listened to it after that, so I brought it over to him, and he had a listen. And, yeah, he did. Yeah, he goes, "Oh, let me hear that." So he was laughing at himself, or the guys, you know, taking the mickey or whatever. And he's no, but the Saipan thing, yeah, as Packie says, it's something we couldn't change. It's happened. We dealt with it, and we moved on. I would nearly say it sort of galvanised us a little bit as a team. I know Packie was on the coaching side, but you know, this is my first World Cup. I spoke about earlier in the show about supporting Packie at a World Cup and as a fan. And when I played for Ireland, I was a fan still. You know, I was playing, but I was a fan. And nothing was going to take away from me playing for Ireland in a World Cup. It was just, you know, dream come true stuff. Yeah, it overshadowed a bit the build-up. But once that first game kicked off, it was just amazing to stand there, the national anthem, and we talk about Japan and so many thousand miles away from Ireland. We walked out, the Irish flags were everywhere. You know, we were just amazed how many people made the journey. And, you know, great memories. We were unlucky against Spain in the end. I didn't have the Timofte moment like Packie did and saved that amazing penalty save. You know, that's probably one of the biggest regrets I had.
I mean, even
playing for Ireland, not saving a penalty.
It came up, I don't know where I saw it recently. You forget the bobble on Mendietta's penalty.
Yeah, and I've seen it somewhere recently as well. I don't know if it was like some sort of, you know, that comes up on social media, whatever it was, and my foot is just there, and the ball is literally just gone over my foot. You know, I knew how he took it. I watched the video pack. He showed me the videos, whatever, and he waits to the keeper to move, and I was waiting, and it just, I know it's a bubble or whatever. It's gone over my foot, but it's gone in. I can't change. I'm even trying to change it now. Like I know it's not going to change, but I just wish I had a moment like that, you know, and saved. But the thing is, well, I think we missed our first 3 penalties, so it was had I even saved it, we were still up against it. But we missed a penalty in the game as well. If you remember, Joe, in the game, I think Ian Hart missed a penalty in the game, and Robbie Keane took the second one. And I know this might sound weird, people watching, but Spain were hanging on in extra time. They were really hanging on. We were really pushing hard, and you know, we're really unlucky not to win before the penalties.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As an aside, when it goes to penalties, I suspect the outfield players who will be taking a penalty, there's a degree of dread, I suppose. Yeah. As a goalkeeper, do you just see it as opportunity? I mean, I've never heard a goalkeeper who dreads penalties, Shay. No,
I think it's your opportunity to become a hero, isn't it? You know, it's probably the nearest thing you'll get to scoring a goal is actually saving a penalty. I think to have that sort of rush, you know, I've been lucky enough to save a few penalties for my club, and I think maybe 1 or 2 for Ireland as well, but not in that crucial game against Spain. But yeah, it's your opportunity to become a hero. I still remember, you know, Packie making that save, as I mentioned, against Romania, with Timofte stepping up, and I just remember in the living room in the house in Donegal jumping through the roof myself. You know, it was just a special moment. And David O'Leary still had to score after that as well. when he made the save, as if we thought he won the World Cup, and then we realised we're still going to score here, by the way. So credit to Dave O'Leary, he stepped up and stuck away the winning penalty. But again, great memories.
Before we go
to we're still living off that penalty shootout, all these years later. We're still
keep
going. And the rest
a drink since. Before we take a quick ad break, Shay, can I just ask you about Newcastle briefly, because it was eventful time to say the least. You were there from '97 to '09. You had 13 different managers. I mean, for the 13 different managers. So Bobby Robson's 5 years jump out. Dalglish brought you there. You had Graham Souness. There was Joe Kinnear. There was Ruud Gullit. There was Sam Allardyce. I mean, later on, Roberto Mancini, obviously various international managers as well. Which manager got the best from you? I mean, it'd be tempting to presume it's Bobby Robson, that was the golden period in your career. Who was the manager that you enjoyed playing under the most, and why?
Well, probably Kenny. Kenny was a big influence in my career. Kenny Dalglish brought me to Blackburn when I was 18. I left Celtic, obviously, at 18. And Kenny brought me to Blackburn, and my first game actually was a bit of a story, but we had a friendly pre-season game, and I had the medical that day, signed the contract. It was such a busy day, and that night we had the game. I think we lost 3-2 or something, and I conceded 2 goals. My fault. It was like, first person I met the next morning in the corridor of the training ground was Kenny, and he goes, "Good job, you signed that contract yesterday, didn't he?" But he was like, he was just winding me up, but he was, what he did say to me was an good bit of advice. He says, never get too down. We all make mistakes. He missed chances or whatever it was when he played, and he says, never go too down and never go too high away on yourself as well. Just try and keep that sort of level. Don't go too down, don't go too high. If you make a great game, you're not the best keeper in the world. You have to keep proving yourself. So it was good advice. But Kenny then brought me to Newcastle. I was 21 when I went to Newcastle, and he gave me the number 1 jersey, and he put his trust in me. And I look at young keepers now I work with, and there's a young keeper trying to get, he's 23. I can't get him out because people say he's got no experience. And now Kenny gave me the jersey at such a big club in Newcastle, and obviously I must have proved to him that I was good enough to play. But that takes a lot of, I don't know what's kind of say the right word, but a lot of confidence to give this young guy the shirt. So I owe a lot to Kenny. But you mentioned, Joe, about Bobby Robson as well. Obviously, a great manager. And one of the things that sticks out probably most with Bobby is his man management skills. What a fantastic motivator. Get the best out of people and players. And I think when you're managing at that elite level, sometimes I think it is man management. Yes, we all talk about tactics and analysing opposition and different things, but I think a lot of it to do with man management. At the time we'd Shearer and Bellamy up front, and maybe didn't see eye to eye all the time, and you could see Bobby going different things, saying to Alan, like, "Oh, don't mind him, he's a wee mouthpiece, he's always chatting and shouting off and all this kind of stuff. You just get in the box, put the ball in the net." And then he'd go up to Bellamy and go, "Don't mind him, he's getting old, you're doing all his running and all this kind of stuff." And then come a Saturday, they were brilliant together. Just little things like that. You could see him going around different players and different individuals and self-motivating, or whatever it is, motivating, getting the best for the team. But yeah, some great memories at Newcastle, a fantastic club.
Yeah, huge, and you were playing such great stuff. Why did Ruud Gullit go so badly, for instance? Big name, you could have seen that being a match made in heaven in some respects, his ego in the club, and but it didn't seem to work. And I know he dropped you for an FA Cup final as well.
Yeah, got the goalkeeping coach to tell me. Still not got over that, Joe, as you can probably tell. It's actually the other side of the coin is lack of man management. That's probably the 2 examples. I talk about Bobby Robson, brilliant man management, and then Ruud Gullit having very little, or maybe I don't know. Just didn't have the last game. I don't know if you remember the last game he played Sunderland. I was injured actually, but he dropped Duncan Ferguson, Alan Shearer for the game. I think it was like, I don't know, it just didn't click. He says he wanted to bring sexy football to Newcastle, and following Bobby Robson as well was a tough act, Joe, to follow. Sure. But his man management skill wasn't great. I played in the semi-final, and I was looking forward to the final, and he told the goalkeeping coach to tell me. So a couple of days before the game, the goalkeeping. So I felt at least I would have an explanation from the manager why I didn't play and why he wasn't picking me. So I didn't agree with the decision. Didn't like him for giving it.
Did he give you a reason through the goalkeeping coach?
I think he said it was McKeegan at the time. She said that I was putting, McKeegan, maybe it wasn't the best, but I didn't think it was just a reason to drop you for the final. I remember playing well in the semi-final. You always think that you played every game up to the final. I think well, me now as a coach would think, you know, well, this guy deserves to play because he's one of the reasons we got there in the first place. But you know, he was the manager. He made that decision, and of course, I didn't agree with him.
Yeah, and so
Joe, just on that.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Packie.
Just coming in, it's amazing, you know, about communication, leadership, about how one manager has got that ability to connect with players, and another manager, even though he might know everything about the game and so on. And the young manager that's now with Leipzig, the young boy, he's 33 years old. He had a great statement about, he's talking about at the level that Shay was playing at and I played at, it's about 30% about tactics, it's 70% about psychology and getting the players to do what you want and building that relationships. And I think that's the lesson.
Mm. And so, because Ruud Gullit has been around dressing rooms his whole life, Shay, for instance, and would it just be a case of not able to quite click with people and he's trying to, or would he just not even be trying to kind of click with players one-on-one?
I mean, looking back now, you probably look, when you're, Packie will tell you, when you're playing, you're focused on your own personal position and how you were dealt with as a person. I don't know, he made a better relationship with other players. I remember telling you about the Duncan Ferguson shear got dropped for the big derby against Sunderland. Well, Alan was in, I think, at 8:15 the next morning outside his office, and Duncan Ferguson was sitting there ready. So they're both wanting to sort of go and rip his head off or whatever because they were raging, you know. But I don't think he had that. I don't know what is it. Maybe it's different managers, different ideas. Some managers would drop you and not tell you, and other managers would pull you in aside. And especially, you know, mentioning the cup final, you know, I think it would have been better if the manager spoke to me face to face and said this is why, and you know, I would respect that more. But maybe his style of management was, no, I pick 11 players. I don't have to explain myself to anyone. I'm the boss. You know, this is my job to do, and you got to get on with it. But I don't think it's the best of the people. I think, as I say, man management skills massive in football and probably any sport. And I think it's key to get that balance right. I know you can't explain every week why someone's not playing, but I think if you've had a long run of games in the team, then I think you at least deserve that, you know, conversation with them.
And Shay, Roberto Mancini was talked about as having terrible management skills by everywhere. I think the quote is he fell out with everybody at the club at Man City, and yet somewhere in the midst of that, obviously manages to make the breakthrough from a Premier League point of view. So how does that type of dynamic work for a Mancini? Because it obviously worked to some extent.
Yeah, it was a strange one because Mancini was a guy who I don't know, it seemed like they thrive on falling out with people every single day, be arguing with the physio, the doctor, the chef, the kitman, anybody. It was a weird sort of way to work, I felt. You know, Manchester City is a fantastic place to work, great club, great owners, you know, they give the full support to the players and the staff, and it felt that he was lighting fires everywhere instead of putting fires out. You know, he seemed to want to, I don't know if it's just an Italian thing or whatever, but he didn't see eye to eye with that many people. I think that's probably one of the reasons he left in the end, because he fell out with so many players and people at the football club. And I never really understood that. Me personally, I played with him for I think it was six months. Joe Hart was on loan at Birmingham and he brought him back then, I think this summer. And after one of the games I played, he says, oh, Shay Given's one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. And then Joe Hart came back in the summer, I never played a game. It was like, so how can you go from the top 5 to not even play? I think we played, I think it was maybe in Oxford in the League Cup or something, and didn't even play in that. You know, Joe, and he made loads of other changes. It was clear that he wanted me out of the building. Yeah. And I never really could have understood that, and never really overly explained why that was the case. But that was a tough one to take. I remember going back the following season, I'd left, I went to Aston Villa, and Man City got drew against Man United at home in the FA Cup 3rd round. And Pantilimon started in goal. I was like, couldn't even play again last year against Oxford, and Pantilimon's playing now, you know. So I don't know if it's personal against me, or he just wanted me out the door, or thought I was, you know, maybe too much of a leader in the changing room or something. I never really understood it, Joe. I wasn't happy with it, but that's his decision again.
Yeah, unless he felt that conflict creates a certain energy. I mean, it might be a great energy, and long term it mightn't work. Maybe there's just a feeling, get everybody on edge here. And, you know, sometimes, Packie, you think Mourinho does that a little bit at times, that maybe that's the method. But I can't say I'd like to play under it personally for 10 years.
No, but every manager is slightly different, you know, and sometimes you have to adapt to be fit in with those managers. But you can see Mancini, his personality on the sideline. I was just watching him enter the other night, and I don't think he stopped talking and shouting and going mad for the whole game. And it's obviously more obvious now because there's no crowd in the place. And it's quite incredible. Different managers have got. I suppose it's about winning. It's about getting a group of players that's actually going to fit into that and that. But yeah, I think the way the game's gone now, personally, I think you have to now study the game a lot more from the sideline. You almost have got to treat players in a completely different way than what you were treated when you played. I'm not a manager. I've not been in that dressing room now for a while, but I do talk to managers from a coach education point of view. And I can see that they all have a different way of doing things, their own personality. And how do they create the right environment, the high performance environment around about them? The use of staff now, I think, is absolutely crucial also. And then how you use staff to actually maybe fill in some of the gaps that you don't have. All of those things matter and that. But yeah, it's interesting how it works. And you're right about Mancini. Maybe it's creating conflict to get the best out of people. I don't know. Does it work? Sometimes, depending on the culture. But does it work all the time? Probably not. And that's why these guys keep moving maybe on also from club to club fairly quickly.
Shay, one last person I want to ask you about, and then we'll take a break, is a figure that we hear a lot about and not very much from, and that's Mike Ashley. Did you have personal dealings with him? How did you find him?
Not great, to be honest. The only sort of dealings I really had, Joe, was towards the end of my time at Newcastle. He brought me into the office and with my solicitor, and we sat down, and he says, we want to make Shay, the captain, the pillar of this club. Alan, I think I just retired Alan Shearer. I know we want to keep him long term, and I was like, okay, right. And I says, well, it was Michael Kennedy actually, who sadly passed away recently, but I said to Michael, I don't want to be involved in any financial chat. Like that's where you have an agent or a lawyer or whatever to do that. So I stood out of the office then, and I got in the car outside the training ground, and Michael was nearly behind me about a minute later. He goes, well, you'll not be staying here, he said. That's the exact words he said to me. It was basically they wanted just to extend my contract on the exact same contract, money-wise or whatever. And it's not so much down to money. It's kind of like this opportunity to join Manchester City was there. So we had a club who were huge ambitions with great owners who wanted to challenge for top honours, or stay at Newcastle. I was there nearly 12 years, which had great memories, great times, but it felt like a sort of rudderless ship floating along with the owner. They were selling the best players, getting free transfers in. This wasn't the Newcastle I joined when I was 21, when they just came second in the Premier League. We were playing Champions League football. We were signing some of the best players in the world. It was a fantastic club to be at. So it just fizzled out with me and with Mike Ashley more than the actual club. Had there been an owner there with huge ambitions and stuff, then I probably would never have left Newcastle. But it just wasn't a good fit in the end, and I felt it was a big opportunity to join Manchester City.
Am I right in remembering it basically came to a point where you had to hand in a transfer request? Yeah,
that was another good one. I woke up the next day and it was like quotes came from the club, obviously through Mike Ashley, saying that we had no other option to let him go because he put a transfer request in, and the truth of the matter was I had a 10% sell-on fee, so I don't know what it went for, 6 or 7 million or something. I think Manchester City paid for me, so it was a lot of money, 600 or 700 grand for me to. Basically, it was a gun to my head. If you don't sign this, you're not getting the move to start with, and he's obviously saving 600 or 700 grand as well, which, don't get me wrong, is a hell of a lot of money, but to a billionaire, I suppose, and given 12 years of your sort of life and service, and I think it was like 460 or 70 games or whatever at the club, you'd felt you'd at least would have some sort of thanks for your your service or your time at the club or whatever. But it was only that he made out in the media that they had no opportunity, no way of keeping me at the club, and it was quite the opposite of him.
Okay, so that's how it works. So I just read in the paper, Shay Given, selfish bugger that he is, wants to get out of the club. He's handed in a transfer request, says, let me out of here. And what's actually happened is, we'll take the sign-on fee and you've to hand in the transfer request.
It was purely a financial thing from the club in the end, So Mike Ashley was just rinsing the last pennies he could get out of the deal, really.
Right, okay. It's interesting, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Fellas, we're going to take a short ad break. I do want to talk to you about goalkeeping and just the position has changed so much. And then a final thought from you both on Irish football's got a big kind of couple of months coming up. So we'll take a short break. We have with us Shay Given and Packie Bonner. This is the first OTB Sports Remote Roadshow in partnership with Cadbury. you can check out cadburyfc.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. We're back with the lads in just one moment.